Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel and welcome to the Computer Chess Championship Season 11 Round 3. So great thing happened, meanwhile we have a new leader. It's not Leela C Zero or Stockfish, it's this neural network based chess engine, this Lilienstein. So this Lilienstein engine is similar to this Leela C Zero engine, but this Lilienstein engine only uses top games in order to have the good base, in order to have this prepared opening lines. On the other hand, Leela C Zero uses much more and a bigger base of data, and here Lilienstein uses, as I said, only the top games that are played, and you see how great this Lilienstein engine is also playing. It plays really some attractive chess, I think, with some great sacrifices. And Leela C Zero and Stockfish again played too many draws, I think, and so far, of course, Stockfish will be maybe out of this finals because Stockfish has played too many draws. Now we have the situation in which Lilienstein and Leela C Zero are in the lead with the same points, but Lilienstein has the better additional criteria and takes the lead in this very nice season. So today I wanted to introduce you this very nice engine with a game played by Lilienstein versus Scorpio, and we have this Slav defense, and it's really a great tactical game played by Lilienstein. So let's check it out. Here we have d4 played by Lilienstein, Scorpio played d5, c4, c6. The Slav defense, knight on f3, knight on f6. We have e3. When I play against the Slav, I like this move knight on c3, but it leads sometimes into a complicated line. After d takes c4, then a4 has to be played. After bishop on f5, something like e3, you get your pawn back here on c4, but there is this problem: you have advanced your a4 pawn, you have left also some space behind. Here in the continuation, e6 and bishop on b4 is the main line. You have the pawn central control, but still this is playable for both sides. I have seen many great games also by black in this particular line. After the move e3, we have a more calm line. It's not so aggressive, but Lilienstein, this engine Lilienstein, would turn it into an aggressive game, which I really like. I always consider this line to be a positional line. That's why I used to play it sometimes, but wasn't satisfied with the outcomes of the games that I've played. After the move e3, it's really a calm line, but be prepared. Lilienstein will make a tactical beauty out of it. So here, bishop on f5, very important move. It seems now that you have weakened your b7 pawn. In the game, knight on c3 was played, and now e6, we have knight on h4 attacking the bishop on f5. So there is always this problem with this bishop on f5. It can be chased around with these two knights. Of course, bishop on e4 we can also take. If you try bishop on g4, then we have h3, g4 and similar ideas. In the game, bishop on g4 was played, and now we have queen on b3. And this is now a very important moment, I think, in the game, because when I used to play, as I said, this particular line, I always hoped that my opponent will not play the move queen on b6. I always hated this move queen on b6 because it leads now into, I don't know, you can maybe chase around this bishop with f3, here bishop on h5. You can even try g4, but you're weakening too much your king side here. After g6, knight takes, h takes g6, but now after bishop on d2, here we have a potential d takes c4, or black can even trade off here after a takes b3, then bishop on b4 creates sort of a positional pin, and this bishop is a little bit bad here on d2. It has some problems. You have, of course, this open a file, but I think this is playable for black. And as I said, I always hated this queen on b6 line. In the game, Scorpio played queen on c7, which leaves also black the opportunity to battle, because we have now attacked here this h2 with the preparation, maybe something like bishop on d6. This could be really dangerous, because while chasing this bishop on f5, you have lost also your defense of this h2. So that's why you don't have another defensive piece here on h2, so you have to further maybe weaken your pawn structure with the h3 and similar ideas. So that's why here h3 played by Scorpio, again kicking away the bishop. Here we have d takes c4 attacking the queen. We have bishop c4, and now bishop on h5. And now you see how aggressive this Lilienstein engine is. Most of us would play something calm like castling, bishop on d2, or even g4. Here e4 played by Lilienstein. Very important move, I think, to crack the position, have this pawn central control, which is restricting this 4 central squares for this minor pieces of blacks. In the game, a6 was played, and maybe a better way is to continue immediately to with the move b5, because there is this problem of this tactical possibilities, because the queen and the bishop build this very important battery on the light squares, and there are really some tactical threats to take bishop on e6, then queen on e6, and with this advanced 2 pawns while creating creating this pawn central control. If you take out these 2 pawns, this pawn on e6 and this pawn on f7, this could be really dangerous, because then we would have a pawn majority here on the king side. We would have sort of a 5 against 2 situation here on the king side, so it could be really dangerous. So in the game a6, which is a little bit passive, because you're preparing of course to move b5, but you could have played b5 anyway, and in the game here simply castling played by Lilienstein. So now b5, it is a loss of tempo. Now bishop on e6. We have a great sacrifice here after f takes e6, queen on e6, and now king on d8. Queen on e7, it seems like a natural move to maybe simplify the position and trade off the queens, but now queen on c8 is very dangerous. After king on f7, we can even try e5. After knight on d5, we can simply proceed with here queen on f5 is very dangerous. We can even take. So that's why it is very hard now for black to find the best moves. You see the knight is a little bit exposed. We have also possibilities, something like f4, even g4. I hope you realize we have here 5 pawns battling against these 2 pawns on the king side. On the other hand, we have also a lack of development. This bishop is blocked out, these rooks are not participating in the game, and the knight is still on this starting square. So these are the main developing problems here for black, so that's why this sacrifice is perfectly fine. So in the game, after bishop on queen on e6, we have king on d8, and now of course black will never castle anymore. In the game, bishop on g5, very important move with the preparation to take and maybe play some checks if the position allows it, because the knight is also protecting this bishop on h5. This bishop is a little bit loose on the board. It was an object of white's attack through the whole game so far, and that's why it's not on the best place. We have also the possibility to place our knight on a very active square on f5, and still these problems of this lack of development of blacks here is, I think, too much to handle. After the sacrifice, the evaluation is much better for white. Unbelievable how great this tactical shot was to take this pawn on e6. Here queen on f7. Scorpio is desperately trying to simplify the position, but now d5. Here we have, if you try, pardon me, here maybe queen on f5 is very dangerous after something like bishop on g6, knight takes on g6, queen takes on g6, and now if we take, queen takes on g6, h takes g, and now we have e5 even. So I think this is playable for white. This would be maybe a better continuation in the game. Lilienstein made maybe an inaccuracy, allowed now black to trade off the queens. After queen on e6, we have d takes e6, but this pawn is still annoying. You have to use 2 more tempos, like king on e7 and then king on e6 in order to take it. And the positional threat for white here is to place maybe your pawn here on f4 and then to play f5 to connect all of these pawns. And of course always we have this threat to play e5, because we have still the pin on the board. In the game, h6 was played, and now bishop on e3, we have king on e7 and the king is hiding a little bit here behind this pawn on e6, but there is again this problem of development here. The bishop is still on the starting square, the rook is on the starting square. We have also these 2 pieces on the starting square, and now of course we have g4. We want to get use of our pawn majority after bishop on e8. If you try something like a bishop on g6, it's not possible, of course, but if even this bishop on g6 would be a possibility, then you see something like f4, f5 would be very dangerous. You have to prepare it, of course, with some f3 moves. But I hope you realize this 5-on-2 situation is really great great strategical possibility here for white to make some progress. If you take, on the other hand, this pawn on e6, then your king gets exposed again with some attacking possibilities. So that's why here bishop on e8 had to be played, and maybe you can try here a counter-attack with the move b4, because then this pawn is hanging. But again, here Lilienstein has prepared a great tactical shot. Here you can play knight on a4. If you play now bishop on e8 to get out of this mess, then we have knight on b6 attacking the rook. If the king comes on a7, then we have knight on c8, the fork, and this would be game over. So great tactics so far in the game. After g4, as said, bishop on e8 was played, and now we have e5. So I hope you realize Lilienstein is creating tempos through the whole game, not allowing here Scorpio to develop these minor pieces, to somehow regroup, to somehow connect all of these pieces. After e5, we have knight takes on d5, here c takes d5, and now very important move, rook on c1, not allowing this knight to come to the c6 square. And now there is really this threat to play f4, f5. If we connect these 5 pawns, then I think it will be game over. In the game, knight on c6 was played, and now of course Lilienstein has this another great tactical shot, rook takes on c6, we have bishop takes, and now knight on g6, the fork on the king and the rook, we have king on e6, and now knight takes on h8. And this game is basically a winning game for white, because we have now 4 connected pawns, which is the most important thing. This is an isolated pawn, and the more important thing is that we can really escape with our knight, because the knight cannot attack this knight with some king on g8 possibilities. And now our main idea is to play f4, f5, knight on g6, and we have solved all of our positional problems, and that's why I think this is really a better position here for white. So in the game, king on e5, of course, but now you get this knight on g6, now we have king on f6, but now rook on c1, very important move, creating a counter-attack on the bishop, and the bishop is again a little bit stuck here. You don't have good squares. If you try bishop on e8, then again it's too passive. We can maybe play knight on f4, attacking again this d5 pawn. Here bishop on b7 was played, and again rook on c7, creating a counterattack. We have king on g6, we have rook takes on b7, and I want you now to evaluate here this endgame, because there is always this problem of this pawn islands. Here white has only 2 pawn islands, because we have now these 2 pawns and these 3 pawns connected. On the other hand, here black has 3 pawn islands, and this is the main target, the weak pawn here on d5. So in the game, rook on c8 was played, and now we have bishop on d4, very important move to centralize our bishop. Rook on c1, we have king on g2, and now rook on d1, attacking the bishop. But not a problem, we can play bishop on e5, and now we can even support it with some potential f4 moves, and this bishop would be really a great bishop in the center of the board, with some preparations even to play something like rook on b6 and attacking these 2 weak pawns. So these are also now weak pawns, because black has left the defense of these pawns. On the other hand, this bishop is covering the pawn on b2, and basically we have solved all of our problems if we just advance the pawn here on a3. This is, I think, a completely better endgame for white. So d4, we have rook on d7 attacking the pawn, so that's why d3 had to be played, but now a3. A5, we have f4, and now king on h7, and now the king comes very actively into the game, king on f3. We have now the possibility to attack the pawn, and if we take it, then white has really a great endgame here. King on g8, again rook on d5, attacking both of these weaknesses. That's why king on h1, we have king on g3, rook on d1, king on f2, but now a5, a4, advancing the pawn. If you take immediately, it's not so good, because maybe black can try here rook on d2 and go after this pawn. So the problem is that we have now a weakness here on h3, and this is a problem, because again white pieces are also stuck a little bit to the defense of the b2. So that's why Lilienstein plays much more actively here with the bishop on c3. We have g6, and now king on f3. You see now this very active play of the king here. Rook on h1, we have now king on g2, again, rook on d7, cutting off this very important 7th rank, so this king will never participate in the game. Rook on a1, and now king on f2. We have bishop on c5, king on f3, and now rook on h3, h1, attacking the pawn on h3. And now Lilienstein plays a very interesting idea, king on e4, leaving this pawn hanging, but have a good centralized king and a huge activity with our king. Rook takes on h3, king on d5. We have bishop on f8, and now king on e6. Here Lilienstein is building a very nice mating pattern with the support of the king, rook, and the bishop. We have also the possibility to maybe create a pass pawn here, which is the most important thing. Then if we manage to do that with this pawn on f7, and with the rook and the bishop and the king, we have even some checkmate possibilities. In the game, rook on g3 was played, and now bishop on e5, protecting this pawn. We have rook on g4, and now rook takes on d3. We have g5, and now of course f5. Now it's basically game over here for black. Unbelievable, although black has disconnected 2 pass pawns, but the bishop is passive, the rook is still passive, and now we have also possibilities to go with our king on g6. This is the main idea, then to play f6 and then f7. Rook on c4 was played. We have f6, rook on c8, now rook on d7. If you advance these pawns, then we can go simply king on f5, then king on g6, f7 would be even checkmate. Here bishop on c7, closing the rook here, and now we have g4, but it's a little bit too late, because now king on f5 as promised, here h4, and now king on g6. Very nice sort of boa constrictor game here by white, not allowing these pieces to breathe here. And although these pawns are advanced, still you need more 1, 2, 3 moves at least to make something happen here, to make a promotion. In the game, bishop on c5 was played, but now bishop on f4, we have rook on f8, and now rook on b7 with the preparation to play bishop on h6, and similar idea, maybe rook on f7, rook on a8. We have bishop on g5 attacking the pawn, but here Scorpio tried at least maybe to get rid of this pawn. This pawn is very dangerous. You see why. Bishop on h6, the check. We have king on g8, and now it's basically a forced checkmate. We have rook on g7. You have only the square on f8 here. King on f8. We have rook on e7 with the discovered check. King on g8, f7. And now rook, king on h8, rook on e8. Of course, we have now a situation in which black has to trade off the pieces. Now, after rook takes on e8, we have f takes on e8, the promotion to queen, and it's game over. Great game, I think, by Lilienstein. Let's go back. Very interesting novelty. It was really, I haven't found any other games in this line after bishop on e6 here, so it's really a great tactical novelty. That's why I like this computer games, because they're bringing us always novelties, and we can always have a good preparation in some particular lines that are bothering us. Maybe here after bishop on e6, queen takes on e6, and a great attack using this pawn majority here on the king side, with the activity of the pieces. Bishop on g5, you see these pieces were too passive in the continuation of the game, so that's why great game, I think, here by Lilienstein, and Lilienstein deserves to be here now on the first place. Stockfish has to struggle now to make it to the finals, because we'll have maybe the finals Lilienstein versus Leela C Zero, but okay, still more games to play. We'll see what will happen. Meanwhile, you can watch my other commented chess games played by computers, and you can also watch my best chess games of all time if you want to see humans battling in their best chess games in history. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.